Hello, I'm Bill Miller, and you're watching Conversation Piece. It seems strange, almost unreal, that I'm going to introduce you to a guest today who survived one of the worst chapters in World War II history when she was a prisoner in the Auschwitz camp, one of the worst of the Nazi concentration camps, and as you know, the attempt of Hitler was to exterminate the Jewish race. So it's a pleasure to have Alice and talk about certain phases of her life. Alice, nice to have you.
Thank you, Bill.
With what you've been through, you're not nervous talking to me for a few minutes, are you?
No, I won't. I'll calm down.
Is it hard for you to talk about the really rugged times in your life, starting when you were a teenager?
Yes, it is. It's getting better as we're getting older, I think, and think about what happened and where we are now. But it's still very difficult.
Well, my idea when I invited you over was to get a few facts so we could know what did happen to you first. And then I want our audience to know, and I want to know, about your trip back to your homeland of Hungary about 8 months ago, why you went and what you found. And if we have any time left, maybe we can talk about a couple of views of the world situation.
What I remember about my grandma is simple. Waking up in PJs and making pancakes. Her way of winking at us, like we were in together on a secret. She was a big part of my life when everything in the world was new. When I was first learning about its feelings and sensations.
Let's see. Hold it up here. Let me see what it is.
I remember the way her skin felt. The way she smelled. Just the feeling of being around her.
Yeah. Ooh, look at that Michael fun. I wonder what Michael's doing.
It seemed like she arrived in my life fully formed. And even looking back, it's hard for me to see how she got to that point. How she kept changing and growing.
What are you going to say? Oh, I remember her. What are you going to say, Michael? Oh, I remember her. We're going to go out pretty soon. And we're going to pick some. What's that way?
I wish I could go back and talk to her and have her tell me the story herself. But when she died, something got lost that couldn't be retrieved. Conversations I'm not able to have with her now that I'm old enough. So I've started putting together the pieces I have. My grandma Lici was born in a small town in Hungary called Sárváron. Her father operated the town's kosher bakery in the front of their apartment. When she was 16, her family was rounded up with the rest of Sárvár's Jewish community, interned in a ghetto, and taken to Auschwitz, where her parents and youngest sister were killed.
Probably the Hungarian pronunciation is different, but your hometown was spelled S-A-R-V-A-R, Sárvar?
Sárvár.
Sárvar.
I could not face going back. My husband always asked me every time he took a trip, business trip to Europe, if I wanted to go. And I could not go back to Europe. I just couldn't face it. And last year I said, okay, I want to go. And I did go, and we went to Hungary, and we went to my hometown, and I could not remember anything. I did not remember the streets. There was a castle there. I remember the castle being there. I I couldn't do it. I had to leave. I spent about an hour, not even that long in town, and I had my husband just drive me out of there. But now I want to go back.
Oh, you think you'll go again?
Yes, I want to go. I want to make some kind of memorial. I have to do it because of my daughter, of my grandchildren. They have to know. You have to tell the story.
Down the streets in Budapest. Here's Grandma. Say hi, Grandma.
I like to do something in my hometown. I don't know what. Maybe even just a headstone in the cemetery. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, just have a headstone for, just one for everybody.
I came to Hungary to see a monument that my grandma had created in her hometown 25 years earlier, when I was still a kid.
I told them that I want to have a monument on the palace ground because I figured they'll always take care of it. So I got permission. I raised money, and 2 years ago we put it down and we had a dedication, and it was incredible.
After that trip, we always had a picture of it on our wall. But as a 12-year-old, I didn't get it. It was strange, abstract. A reminder of everything I couldn't access in my grandma. What I wanted was for her to sit me down and tell me her story. But that talk never came. It was only after she died that I began thinking that maybe what she left me was enough. I wanted to finally see her monument, to represent our family there for its 25th anniversary, and see what she had left for me to find. Andras?
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. There's a protein bar for you and a water, and this is
Thank you,
something
Andras.
really good if you feel like eating it. This is coffee. Heritage tours have a tendency to take you to a lot of places. I mean, you can find some information here, but most of the information is either in Israel or in some other archives. Here, most of the people just want to actually go to the place where their grandparents, great-grandparents, or ancestors actually lived, and try to, they might have a picture, a faded picture with a number of the house on it, so they say, okay, how can we find that house? Or do you think we can find the school that they went to? Or find a photo or class photo from 1820s. In some ways, they're disappointed at the fact that they can't really find anything there anymore. The young people, they're basically trying to find their way in this.
Andras specialized in Jewish heritage tours, an industry I hadn't known existed. And we connected over the fragments we'd collected of our family stories. His parents were Holocaust survivors, who also never talked to their children about what happened. Before his mom died, she left behind a series of cassette tapes with her story that he had only now started to listen to. He took me to an old apartment that he and his family use as a storage unit.
On the first set of cassettes, she wrote, I guess, stuff. This is the war and what happened after. So, wow, I didn't know these. I didn't know she actually wrote stuff on it. Wow. Well, basically, she told us, she wanted it to be, the whole thing to be in one place, I guess. For it to be one story. So, here goes nothing.
Elkezdem a kazettát. 1993. május 8-án. Nyilvánvalóan többször meg fogok állni, hol a derbi, hol ez, hol az, hol amaz. Először elmondanám, hogy honnan származom. A szüleimet. Noha hagyok itt egy füzetet.
Andras understood why I was here. Whole generations of Jewish people came here, trying to uncover what happened to our families. But he warned me that memorializing the Holocaust could be complicated in Hungary. Countries don't like being implicated in their past mistakes. He took me to a new monument, erected by the government, to show me what he was talking about. An angel, representing Hungary, is being attacked by an eagle, representing Nazi Germany. But Hungary wasn't attacked by Germany. They were allies. And it was Hungary that committed some of the most horrible crimes of the Holocaust. Many people see this monument as the government trying to rewrite history, covering up its role in what happened, including a woman we met there named Maria Heller, who had helped organize the counter memorial in front of it.
So immediately when we heard that the government had this plan of erecting this monument, we decided to protest against it, and our protest was first that we occupied the place where the would-be monument would have been constructed, and we started to put their objects and told to people to come here and take with them objects that reminded them of the Second World War. And in this way we wanted to somehow symbolically at least occupy the place, not to let the monument be built. But what happened is that we continued to have what we call the living memorial, because the falsifying one we call the dead monument. It doesn't show anything, it just tells you lies. So what we decided to do is to put against it or in front of it a real monument where people could take everything that they think is important and which reminds them of those who have been killed during the Second World War. You also have a lot of small white stones, because in a way it's also to remind about the Jewish custom of putting pieces of stone on relatives' tombstones, and most of these people of course don't have a tombstone because they have been killed in the concentration camps. As you see now, the living monument is rather long, and it's becoming even and even longer depending on the new object that people take here to remember their dead people.
This place opened up the idea of what a monument could be. A letter, a photo, a pair of shoes.
Something else that I found, because all this I knew by my mother, she always told me, I saw the numbers on her arm, and so it was never a secret in my family. So I knew everything about that. Just one thing that I found after my mother's death, she died at the age of 92 last year, and while I was emptying her cupboards and drawers, I found something that she never told about me, and these are three small booklets of 44, 45, and 46. And I can't understand how she was able to keep this little notebook with her in Auschwitz, because there are also inscriptions that were made in Auschwitz. So I can't understand, now I cannot ask her because she is not there anymore, but she never told me about this. Where did she hide it and how did she hide it? I don't know.
The next morning, we drove 3 hours west of Budapest into the countryside. There weren't any Jews left in Sárvár, my grandma's hometown. So we made a stop on our way at the bigger city nearby, called Szombathely, where my grandma's mother came from. Jó napot!
Jó napot! Na, minden rendben?
Minden rendben.
Melyik szállodában vagytok?
We met the president of the local Jewish community here, named Shandor Marcus, whose parents, like Andrash's, had been Holocaust survivors. It felt like we were three versions of the same story. Children who were piecing together a family conversation we'd only overheard.
Ezt megnézem azért. Halálozási anyakönyv. Ezek sárvári anyakönyvek. Érdekes tud lenni. Ha tudnánk biztosan, hogy mikor született a nagymamája, akkor talán megtaláljuk.
Do you know the exact date when your grandma was born?
April 6th, 1928.
Április 6, 28.
28?
1928.
Akkor nem. 23-ig van.
It's only until 1923.
Mikor Sárváron megszűnt a hitközség, akkor nekünk küldték el. Ami maradt. De hát ez is olyan állapotban, hogy... Yeah.
I don't know if you know what happened to the birth records and death records of the Jews. The Germans systematically burnt all of them. So whatever is left is really a treasure.
Talán azért nem is tudtam a zsidóságomról, nem csak azért, mert nem beszéltek róla a szüleim, hanem olyan körökbe mozogtunk, mint mostani szemmel visszagondolva, ahol ez nem volt téma, csak zsidó emberekkel barátkoztak a szüleim. Egyszerűen nem voltam olyan helyzetben gyerekként, hogy nekem feltűnt volna, hogy én zsidó vagyok, vagy mi vagyok, vagy egyáltalán más lennék, mint a többiek. Kérdezgettem apámat, aki azt mondta, hogy ne foglalkozz vele, fiam, ez egy vallás. Sose felejtem, azt mondta, ez egy nem bevált vallás, ez egy gyilkos vallás, te ne gyakorold. Ne gyakorold, fiam. De anyu félrehívott mindoly sokszor, és most nem mesélt, hanem elmondta, hogy mi történt. Sajnálom, hogy akkor még nem volt magnó, hogy fel tudtam volna venni. Nagyon rossz az emlékező tehetségem amúgy is, de úgy próbáltam meg elmondani nekem, hogy gyerekként is tökéletesen felfogtam, hogy mi az, hogy zsidónak lenni. Olyan tökéletesen úgy mondta el anyám, hogy még most is itt cseng a fülembe. Anyu sem mondott el igazán mindent, a szörnyűségekről nem beszélt, csak az, hogy milyen veszteség volt az, hogy bemutatta a rokonságát, a nagybátyjait, az unokatestvéreit, elmondta, hogy kik voltak, hol voltak, mit csináltak, és akkor kérdeztem rá, hogy ennyi ember hol van, hát hogyan nem tűnhetnek el. Én felnőttem nagyszülők, rokonság minden nélkül, és pedig voltak. Mi történt? Nekem ezt tudnom kellett, és nagyon sokáig kutattam, nem nagyon sokáig, a mai napig.
There was an exhibit here, made in anticipation of the day when no Jews will be left in Szombathely. The everyday things I had grown up with, that were so familiar to me, were here behind glass. A museum exhibit to a lost culture. It reminded me of learning about the Native Americans when I was in school, as if they didn't still exist, as if no one was alive to tell the story. And here, after Shandor and the few others are gone, there might not be.
Akkor a történészi munka módszerére egy példát szeretnék hozni. Tehát látható egy üvegnegatív. Megmutatom.
Oh, wow.
Egy hölgy portréja. És akkor az azonosítás lehetőségét az üvegnegatívon elhelyezett felirat adja. Itt azt látjuk, hogy 1938, és a megrendelő neve Brill Rózsi. És akkor a történész a nyomozást ott folytatja, hogy előveszi a megrendelőkönyvet, amely ugye évszámokra lebontva tartalmazza a megrendelők neveit. Sok esetben megadják egyébként a lakhelyet is. Több mint 600 embernek az arcát ismerhetjük meg, jó részt ennek a gyűjteménynek a segítségével.
Shandor introduced us to a historian named Christina Kelbert, who worked at a local museum. She'd spent the last few years investigating an archive of photographs she'd found in the basement. Hundreds of pictures taken of Jewish people before the Holocaust.
Történészként a doktori disszertációmat is társadalomtörténetből írom, és nagyon érdekes számomra a nők története. És igazából ezt a kutatást egy helyi zsidó nő történetével kezdtem, akinek a tragédiája megragadott, illetve hát egy tanulmányt is készítettem az ő történetéről. Nem tudom, hogy így látható. Említettem, hogy a gyűjtemény feldolgozása közben találkoztam egy üvegnegatívon a fiatal hölgyel, Schwarz Gabriellával, aki éppen 1929-ben egy fotón Salome jelmezében pózolt a fotográfus előtt. És én akkoriban azzal a tanulmánnyal foglalkoztam, hogy a hölgyek az 1920-as, 30-as években milyen szerepekben, akár jelmezekben, akár eseményeken, milyen szerepekben tűnnek fel. És ugye ez a Salome jelmez, ez nagyon izgalmas volt számomra, és ez a Salome szerep, és elkezdtem utána kutatni, hogy ki ez a hölgy, aki a fotográfián látható, és konkrétan a Centrópa oldalára kalauzolt a net, ahol azzal találkoztam, hogy ez a hölgy, aki 29-ben még Salome jelmezben pózol, óriási mosollyal az arcán, őt 1944-ben a deportálások idején milyen sors várta. Tehát megrázó volt az a pillanat, amikor azzal az információval találkoztam történészként, hogy ez a hölgy a második gyermekének adott életet a deportálások előestéjén, ahol is mindenféle egészségügyi ellátás nélkül a földön fekve kellett megszülni a második gyermekét, a fiát, Párcer Gábort, és a csendőrök őket sem kímélték a deportáláskor, ugyanúgy felrakták őket a vagonokra, és az édesanyját is, és a párnapos csecsemőjét is Auschwitzban gázosították el. És ez egy olyan drámai pillanat volt ennek a ténynek az ismerete, és a Salome jelmezes hölgynek az arcnak az összerakása, hogy ez egy életre szóló kihívást jelentett számomra továbbiakban, hogy ezzel foglalkoznom kell. ő neki a történetét igazából fel lehet dolgozni ezeken a fotókon keresztül, akkor kezdett el mozgatni az a tény, hogy nem egyedül van, hanem millió ilyen lehetőséget rejt magában még ez a kollekció, és ezért vállalkoztam arra, hogy belefogjak ennek a feldolgozásába.
Christina was not Jewish, but these stories began to sink into her and affect the way she saw her hometown.
És hát ahogy így történészként egyre jobban elmélyül az ember a város történetében, úgy meg még inkább kötődik most már akár üzletekhez, épületekhez. Ugye, ahogy megismeri a történész a mögötte rejlő dolgokat is, egy ház már nem csak egy ház, hanem az ott élők története, úgyhogy így meg már még jobban ragaszkodik a városhoz. Tehát azokat a helyeket sokszor így belerögzülnek az emberben, hogy az a Schwarz Gabriela épp hol lakott, hogy a másik ember, akit elvittek, vagy épp hol volt a gettó határa, tehát hogy így a pontjai a városnak is beleégnek az emberben.
She took us back to the Jewish Community Center to show us what she'd been working on with the photographs. She'd created a kind of shrine to the Jewish people of Szombathely, whose photos she found in that basement and whose stories she had uncovered.
Ezen a tablón láthatóak.
It was like looking at a family album. A giant family album. I'd found this one picture of my great-grandmother as a young woman in Szombathely in my grandma's photo album. Was she a model? An actress? The story behind that picture was long gone. But seeing this exhibit put her right with her people. It was what they did for fun. Dress up and take pictures. And it's beautiful in a way that these were the pictures that were saved.
Hello.
It felt like we were getting closer to my grandma, to this part of her that she'd buried. It was somewhere in the burned records, the objects behind glass, and the picture of her mom. We took a walk to process everything we'd seen and to look for something that Shandor told us about. And there, in the middle of a shopping center, we saw it. A monument I would have walked right by. A child's jacket for the 613 children that were sent from Sambathai to Auschwitz, hanging on a door, as if she was coming back for it. The door marked the entrance of the Sambathai ghetto, where the Jews of this town had been interned. I saw my daughter in that jacket. I saw Anna, too, my grandma's little sister who never came back from Auschwitz. And thinking of her, I felt like I got to know my great-grandparents for the first time. They'd always been dusty black and white pictures on my grandma's wall. But really, they were young parents, only a few years older than I am now, trying to keep their kids safe. I remember walking in with my wife for an ultrasound, seeing our baby moving her tiny arms and legs on the screen for the first time. And it hitting me that there was a real human being in there.
Oh my gosh.
I'd crossed a line into a world in which someone else would be in my care for as long as we both lived. After she was born, I started having nightmares about something coming for us. I would go on walks and suddenly feel claustrophobic. A man walked into a synagogue and killed 11 people.
Early Saturday morning.
Suspects talking about all these Jews need to die.
At the University of Virginia's campus.
A leftover childhood fear gripped me, that my family would be targeted for being different, like my grandma's family was. That the same thing could happen again. I started to think that being in my grandma's presence, and in the presence of her story, would be some kind of guidance. She had taken all these feelings that I'd been too young to understand and put them into a memorial that would be waiting for me when I was ready. I knew it might be irrational, but I was looking for some kind of message about how to live with this fear, about how to explain this world to my daughter.
I'd like to begin with talking about Sárvár. What kind of a town is it? Was it when you were small?
It was about 10,000 people, and about a very mixed area. It was about 1,000 Jewish people there, and we had a temple, a couple of them, and it was a very nice community, very quiet, very nice. We had a bakery, and that's where my father made his living, And my mother was there to raise us. Never thought we were going to leave it. Went to school there, and we lived there till we were forced to move out of there.
The location of the old synagogue, not the old Orthodox synagogue in Sárváron, it was converted into a storage house or whatever, and fabric warehouse, if I remember correctly. Whatever happened to it, I don't know.
Using my grandma's interviews as a sort of map, we packed up to head into Sárváron to find the places she talked about. To stand there and mark them, with my camera if nothing else.
So what were some of the signs of anti-Semitism you experienced?
Well, the first thing that I remember is in school, in high school, we had to sit in the back of the class because we were Jewish. That's the first time I really remember people say we were Jewish and we were different. I never felt I was different. And we couldn't go to the high school anymore. We just went to our Jewish school. And I remember my father said, "That's okay, it'll be all right. They'll change their mind." And then we had to wear a yellow star. So everybody knew we were Jewish. Not that we ever denied it, but there was like a stigma that you had to have that, and people would look at you, and the kids started to throw rocks. And then became time that we couldn't even go to school anymore.
Can you describe what you remember, how the Germans came in?
Yes, I remember we were all at home, and all of a sudden we just heard the gunshots and a lot of people just running and screaming, and they just walked into the city, to the town. We could still stay in the house, but my father said, "Oh, they're just going through the town." I think my father knew they weren't just going through the town. And then I remember the next thing we had to do is we all had to gather a suitcase, and we went into, they made us go into a certain house, a building. It was like a factory. And we could not leave unless with their permission.
Okay. So probably the ghetto sort of started from here and went all the way to the other end.
I knew there wouldn't be markers or memorials or plaques, but it was still jarring to see that there wasn't anything. This yellow house, beside the factory lot, which had been seized from a Jewish family, was where the town's Jews had to register before they were taken to Auschwitz. Now it was being turned into a hotel.
And like people who are going to be at the hotel at some point are going to be sitting there sipping their drinks or drinking their coffee and probably not knowing that the place that they're doing all these things was originally a ghetto.
Majd tarts balra a Szatmár utcára.
So it's like totally no remembrance in this respect. And like, I guess 10-15 years from now, nobody's, unless they do the research, nobody's gonna remember anything. It's just gonna be a fancy house.
I remember going to Auschwitz. I think it took about 3-4 days, and was no water and no food. By the time we got there, half the train, half the people were dead by the time we arrived. And they starved or they didn't have water. And I remember it was raining one day, and I had a little teaspoon. I put it through the window. I would get water to put it in my father's mouth because he was getting very sick, and I figured he's going to die too. And that's how I gave him water to live. And we got there. And my mother and my little sister disappeared the first day. My mother was holding my sister's hand. And I never saw them again.
This was the last place in Sárvár that my grandma's family had all been together. It was probably the same for all the town's Jewish families. There's no sign, no place to collect flowers or leave stones. Nothing special about it at all. It's just a train station now. People come and go, looking at their phones.
Most of the people that survived from Sárvár would come back to Sárvár, most of them, after the war, because we all thought that everybody's going to come back. And we were there for months, and we realized that this is it. I don't remember people ever asking, do you need anything? You want to go home? You want this? You want that? I just remember, you know, we had a place. I don't know, one of the cousins or one of the boys that we knew, they had an apartment. I don't know how they got it or whose place it was. And we all kind of slept there.
What about your old house? What happened to your old house?
The baker lived there. Never even thought of going back. I don't remember ever thinking about going back there.
Yeah, that's the house. Yep, that's the house. Mike, it's right over there.
Let's see.
That's the house.
Oh my gosh.
I counted the windows. It has 9 windows.
Wow. The house where my grandma grew up had been a bakery, with a small apartment attached. We didn't know if anyone would be home who could talk to us. I half expected to find it like the room in the museum, with the dinner table still set. But now, of course, it was someone else's home. It was strange being in a place that lived in my mind for so long. This was where my grandma slept in a breadbasket as a baby, while her father worked. Where the Jewish community brought their Shabbat meals to stay warm overnight in the big oven. After András told them a little about my family history, the people here were kind enough to talk to us.
Lehet is kérdezni. You have the picture of them? Oh, yeah.
I'd brought a photo of my grandma's sister with the man my great-grandfather had entrusted the bakery to when Sárvár's Jews were taken away. I didn't know if anyone here would have remembered him, but it turned out the same family had lived here ever since.
Ez a nagypapám, ez az én nagypapám.
That's her grandfather.
Oh, really?
Ez az én nagyapám.
Wow.
Igen, ő a papám.
Mert ő meg a nagyanyja.
Ja, értem.
Ez az egészért vagyunk itt igazából.
Ja, értem.
Emlékszik valamit erről az egész történetről?
Hát én 64-ben születtem, gyerek voltam még ittán, tehát én azért még igen gyerek voltam. Nagy javarészt, igazából akkor már nem is működött úgy, mint pékség, amikor én már azért valamennyire emlékeztem rá, tehát már akkor megvolt még maga a pékség, de akkor már lomtár volt, tehát nem volt, nem funkcionált, mint pékség. Úgyhogy akkor már nem. Ugye akik itt laktak régen, azok is már mindenki kihalt, meg már annak a hozzátartozója sem itt lakik. Tehát igazából szinte mindenki.
Nagyszülőké volt az a dédszülő.
Persze.
De végül is két-három generáció lakott itt. Már itt lakott a nagyapám, a nagymamámmal, utána az anyukámék is ide költöztek, és akkor most a gyerekeim is itt laknak, tehát valami 3-4 generáció lakik.
The way they lived is her grandfather lived over there.
Part of me wanted to see the inside of the house, to go inside where the bakery was. But when I wasn't invited, I didn't press it. It felt momentous being there, in that courtyard. But there was something bothering me I couldn't articulate at the time. That apartment was sacred to me in some distant way. But it was full of other people's private lives now, and it didn't feel right to point a camera at it. What made it special to our family had been gone for years. I wondered if they ever thought about the story of that house, the family that grew up there, and who were taken away. But on the other hand, who was I to insist that they remember? I also lived on land, back in the US, that was forcibly evacuated generations before my time. How often do I think about the families, friends, communities that are no longer there? At home, There are no pictures of them. No memorials. It was all very unsettling. But we were on our way to the one place in Sárvár that remembered. For a little while, the past met up with us.
Well, here we are at the Sárvár Castle on our day when the monument will be dedicated. It's a beautiful sunny day. Here is a pathway leading down to the park on the castle grounds. It's really very beautiful.
We used to go around the park and around the castle, and that was a park that opened to the public, and that's what we used to do on Saturdays. We walked around after lunch, after the temple.
And here we are approaching the memorial. Some people are already starting to gather. They are testing the sound system now. This is a big deal for Sárvár, a very important occasion.
To me, it's like a casket. And the other piece, to me, it looks like a headstone. And that's the way I feel about it. It's kind of something I feel I owed it to the people that died. I owed it to the people that are alive, and they should see it. We weren't in anybody's funeral. You know, we couldn't put them away and pray for them. I thought, this is my funeral. This is the funeral for everybody.
It was like a dream. I was there, up close, inside these images that I'd watched 100 times. It was like being at a family cemetery, as if our ancestors were buried here, or their spirits were lingering here. It was like being in synagogue as a kid, listening to a song in a language I couldn't understand. I stayed around the monument until into the evening. I could tell that part of me was waiting for something miraculous to happen here. But it just couldn't do so many things that somewhere in my heart I had secretly, naively wanted it to do. It couldn't bring people back. It couldn't change the past. It couldn't tell me what my grandma was thinking. I expected that coming here, I'd feel a sense of completion, of closure. But after traveling all this way, that feeling seemed to elude me. Did she feel that too? After the monument was done, she must have still felt what was missing. As much as I wanted to see all these places, what I really wanted to see was my great-grandfather in the bakery, the girls playing in the courtyard, my grandma looking through family photos, telling me stories. Things that were really, truly gone. When I was in high school, my grandma got me my first camera. Since then, I've filmed thousands of hours of footage. Some combination of a film diary and a home movie archive, with no end product in mind. With that camera, she gave me a way of processing my life. A way to create something from my feelings and my experiences. When I feel anxious about the world, I can make something out of it. This film was created out of that process. It was something I saw her do. She took her feelings and memories and made a monument.
Well, here we are at Grandma and Grandpa Craig's house. Grandma's been very busy gardening.
I remember a summer morning when the Shoah Foundation came to her house to film an interview with her.
Let's see, we'll go up to the front door and see if we can peek in the kitchen window.
It was my first time seeing a real camera setup with microphones and lights.
Today is August 20th, 1998. I'm conducting an interview with Alice Craig. Her name at birth was Alíz Lichtenstein. The language is English.
It wasn't lost on me that the camera was allowing her to say something that she didn't feel comfortable talking openly with us about.
And, you know, people wanted to know why I did it. And I did it because I wanted people to know in Sárvár and in the whole area that we were there once. Children in school, they don't even know we ever lived there. It's so hard for me to understand. There was a whole society, you know, families that nobody knows we were there.
My grandma had said her monument was a funeral, a headstone. But when I was there, her family and her friends and neighbors were alive in my mind.
Talk to the birds. Can you talk to them? Go like that.
Maybe it's the most we can hope for when we put our stories into a vessel. That it brings something to life in the imagination of whoever receives it.
Először elmondanám, hogy honnan származom. A szüleimet.
It's like an act of faith.
Néha hagyok itt egy füzetet, nek az a címe, hogy jegyzetek a kezektáról.
On our last morning in Sárvár, András and Sándor had organized a service for the monument's 25th anniversary, and a few of the remaining Jews from Szombathely gathered with us. It was a lot smaller than the first ceremony, but we were here now, trying to hear something before it gets lost, and remember it for the next person.
Oké. Tisztelettel köszöntöm az emlékezőket, és szeretném elmondani, hogy a mi zsidóságunk 613 parancsolata közül nagyon előkelő helyen van a szahor, azaz emlékez szó. Most mi is ezt tesszük. Emlékezünk. Emlékezünk nem csak azokra, akiknek köszönhetjük ezt az emlékművet, akik lehetővé tették, hogy az idők végeztéig emlékezni tudjunk, hanem emlékezünk arra 611 hittestvérünkre, akik a mai napig rettenetesen hiányoznak. Emléküket igyekszünk minden módon megőrizni. Megőrizzük különböző módokon, köztük az itt látható emlékművel is, de emlékezünk rájuk imáinkba és emlékezzünk minden más módon, mert felejthetetlenek. Az emlékezés nem csak azért szükséges, mert csak azok halnak meg, akit elfelejtenek. Mi nem felejtjük el őket. Tehát köszönettel tartozunk Majkinak, nagymamájának, aki által ezt a emlékművet köszönhetjük, és ígérjük, hogy idők végeztéig fenntartjuk Sárvár zsidó lakóságának, megölt lakóságának emlékezetét. Minden jót. Zahor.
Ha holnap visszajövünk, akkor technikát hozzá, hogy